They told you the UEFA Cup was second-rate, a sideshow, a Thursday night afterthought. But what if that was never true? What if the toughest European campaigns didn't happen under Champions League lights, but in its shadow? Stay till the end, because this data-backed revelation flips football history on its head and exposes the lie we've all been sold. The UEFA Cup is often dismissed as the lesser sibling of European competitions, a Thursday night obligation for those who failed to reach football's true summit, the UEFA Champions League. But history doesn't fold so easily. For decades, the UEFA Cup was a coliseum of giants, where titans clashed with an intensity that mirrored, and sometimes eclipsed, its more glamorous counterpart. While the modern perception favors the Champions League, the truth, buried under decades of reform and expansion, whispers a different story. One in which the UEFA Cup was not just competitive, but, at times, superior. The European Cup began as a strict contest of national champions. Only the top club from each European league could participate. This exclusivity gave the tournament prestige, but limited its breadth. In contrast, the UEFA Cup, introduced in the 1971-1972 season, flung open the gates to the best of the rest. This structure didn't dilute the quality, it concentrated it. The strongest second, third, and fourth-place teams from Europe's toughest leagues enter the fray. Clubs that had fallen short in cutthroat domestic races now found themselves in a European battlefield arguably more balanced and intense than the elite-only European Cup. The evidence is more than anecdotal. In the 1979-1980 season, Nottingham Forest, a team with scarcely any European pedigree, retained their European Cup title. But while Brian Clough's men celebrated, a statistical anomaly unfolded in parallel. The UEFA Cup that year, won by Eintracht Frankfurt, boasted a higher tournament coefficient, 58.41, than the European Cup's 52.91. This was not a blip, it was a sign. The UEFA Cup had attracted 5 powerhouse clubs from West Germany, the continent's most dominant league at the time, according to the UEFA League coefficient. Bayern Munich may have been in the European Cup, but the German might was concentrated in the UEFA Cup. Quality had shifted, not by accident, but by the design of eligibility rules. And then came the 1984-1985 season, stained forever by the Heysel disaster, but also statistically significant. Michel Platini's Juventus lifted the European Cup. On the surface, it was a campaign led by legends. But underneath, cracks appeared. The tournament UCR was 61.63. The UEFA Cup, meanwhile, was a festival of heavyweights. Real Madrid, Tottenham Hotspur, Internazionale, Spartak Moscow all participated. The tournament UCR soared to 66.59, outmuscling the prestige of the European Cup. A Soviet side with minimal European history had somehow reached the quarterfinals of the top tournament, while the UEFA Cup brimmed with proven continental powerhouses. Those numbers alone were startling, but they only scratched the surface. To truly measure the might of each tournament, a new lens was required. The UEFA coefficient, which counted wins, draws, and progression through rounds, told part of the story. But what about league form? What about a club's consistency on the domestic front? Enter the LPR, the League Performance Rating. Developed as a complementary formula, the LPR traced the positions of clubs in their domestic leagues over 5 seasons, adjusted for the relative strength of the league itself. First place in Italy's Serie A did not carry the same weight as first place in the Swiss Super League. It was not just points, it was context. With the LPR, myths were dismantled. Nottingham Forest, with their fairy tale rise, scored an LPR of 2.73 before their 1980 triumph. The tournament average that year was just 3.02, marking the 1979-1980 European Cup as the weakest by LPR in history. And yet, their road to glory was arduous. Ajax Amsterdam, BFC Dynamo, and Hamburg SV stood in their path. Despite the statistical weakness of the field, the difficulty of Forest's journey was undeniable. That contradiction birthed a new metric, the ODR, or Overall Difficulty Rating. It fused tournament strength, champion strength, and the quality of opposition faced. For Nottingham Forest's 1980 win, the ODR was 14.42, ranking it among the most difficult campaigns in history. A paradox had been revealed: a weak tournament, a weak champion on paper, yet an achievement carved from iron. The ODR began uncovering truths that raw results couldn't tell. Take the 2007-2008 season. Sir Alex Ferguson's Manchester United were one of the favorites. Their LPR was high, their squad dripping with talent. The tournament was the 10th strongest in history. And yet, their road to the trophy was brutal. Olympique Lyonnais, AS Roma, FC Barcelona, and finally Chelsea FC. Their ODR? 14.71, just 0.29 higher than Nottingham's, despite a far stronger United side in a more robust tournament. The formula was not fooled by glamour, it measured hardship. But perhaps the most shocking revelation came when ranking the toughest triumphs in European football. In fifth place stood Red Star Belgrade's 1991 victory. A team ripped apart by war months later had defied the odds against Bayern Munich and Olympique de Marseille. In fourth, FC Porto's 2004 conquest under Jose Mourinho, marching past Manchester United and Olympique Lyonnais. In third, Louis van Gaal's Ajax Amsterdam in 1995, a squad of academy graduates who toppled AC Milan twice. In second, Thomas Tuchel's Chelsea FC in 2021, overcoming Atletico Madrid, Real Madrid, and Manchester City. And in first, the unlikeliest of all, Liverpool FC's 2019 resurrection. Jurgen Klopp's Liverpool had an LPR of 3.57, making them the 45th weakest champion in European history. Yet they played in the fourth strongest tournament and faced a gauntlet of Bayern Munich, FC Porto, FC Barcelona, and Tottenham Hotspur. Their ODR? A towering 18.13. It was not only a triumph, it was a crucible. But in sixth place, nestled among these Champions League juggernauts, stood Tottenham Hotspur's 1984 UEFA Cup win. Their LPR was a mere 1.43. Only two European champions had lower LPRs. And yet, their opposition was brutal. Bayern Munich, Austria Vienna, Hajduk Split, and RSC Anderlecht, the defending champions. The average path LPR was 4.68. Their ODR, 16.07, higher than any Champions League campaign before 1995, higher than Juventus in 1985, higher than Ajax in 1973. And yet, for many, it is a forgotten story. This is the central tragedy. As the Champions League expanded, first in 1997 with a second spot for top leagues, then again in 1999 with 4 teams from the top 3 leagues, the competition grew more inclusive but also more predictable. Giants faced giants, yes, but the pool widened and the sheen of the UEFA Cup dulled. A competition once brimming with powerhouses turned into a consolation prize, reshaped and rebranded into the Europa League. The Thursday night slot became its curse. But numbers remember what narratives forget. 21 UEFA Cup campaigns have had a higher LPR than the weakest Champions League campaign, the 1979-1980 season. That is not speculation. It is arithmetic. Eintracht Frankfurt's UEFA Cup run in 1980, Real Madrid's 1985 conquest, Tottenham Hotspur's 1984 miracle. Each eclipsed supposedly superior Champions League seasons in both quality and difficulty. So how did the myth emerge? The Champions League, with its pomp, anthem, and branding, became a spectacle. It inherited the history of a European Cup and, with TV deals and global reach, transformed into the pinnacle of club football. But that transformation erased the memory of what came before. A time when the UEFA Cup was not just relevant, it was revered, when West German dominance made it the true crucible of Europe, when club legends lifted it with the same pride as any other continental trophy. Today, when fans scoff at the Europa League, they dismiss a history written in sweat, blood, and glory. They forget that for many years, the competition hosted Europe's fiercest battlegrounds. They forget that teams like Tottenham Hotspur, Real Madrid, Internazionale, and even Liverpool cut their teeth not in the Champions League, but in the UEFA Cup. It is time to retire the myth that one competition has always towered over the other. The Champions League may hold the crown today, but there were moments, measured not in perception but in data, where the UEFA Cup was the sharper sword. It had fewer restrictions, more contenders, and in some seasons, fiercer competition. It was a tournament where anything could happen, and often did. The study closes not with a verdict, but with a revelation. Superiority is not always linear. It is not always dictated by anthems, logos, or the night of the week a match is played. It is earned, year by year, match by match, opponent by opponent. And sometimes, when history is measured not by narrative but by the unyielding logic of data, it whispers a truth too long ignored. The UEFA Cup, in its heyday, was not a shadow, but a rival. So now that the numbers are on the table, was the UEFA Cup ever truly inferior, or have we been blinded by branding and anthem bias? Does competition quality lie in prestige or in pure difficulty? Drop your thoughts in the comments. This one deserves a real conversation. And if you're tired of recycled football myths, subscribe now. We're just getting started unraveling them.